The emergency beacon's shrill cry pierced through the static on Marcus Chen's console, interrupting his quiet evening shift at Kepler-7's mining facility. He set down his lukewarm coffee and frowned at the display. A ship had gone down in Sector 9, the treacherous canyon region where electromagnetic storms played havoc with navigation systems. Another rookie pilot who thought they could take a shortcut, he muttered. Grabbing his rescue gear, the facility's automated systems would have alerted the main crew. But Marcus knew the canyons better than anyone. He'd spent 3 years mapping every crevice and cave while repairing mining equipment. The crashed vessel wasn't like anything in the standard registry. Its hull shimmered with an opalescent sheen that seemed to shift colors, even in the dim light of Kepler-7's perpetual twilight. The ship had carved a deep furrow in the regolith before coming to rest against a cluster of iron-rich boulders. Marcus approached cautiously, scanner in hand. One life sign, stable but unconscious. The airlock hissed open at his touch, surprisingly sophisticated biometric recognition. For a civilian craft, inside, the pilot lay slumped over crystalline controls that pulsed with fading light. She was luminin, that much was obvious. Her skin had the characteristic pearl-like quality that seemed to glow from within, and her hair fell in waves of silver white that appeared almost liquid. But it was her clothing that made Marcus pause. The fabric was too fine, too intricate for a common traveler. "Hey, can you hear me?" He gently shook her shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that swirled with colors like captured nebulae. For a moment, she stared at him in confusion. Then her expression hardened into one of barely concealed disdain. "Human," she said, the words sounding like she'd bitten into something sour. "You're welcome," Marcus replied dryly. "I'm Marcus, and I just saved your life. Think you can walk?" She pushed his offered hand away and stood on her own, though she swayed slightly. "I require no assistance from..." Her words cut off as her legs buckled. Marcus caught her before she hit the floor. "Right, no assistance needed." He shifted her weight, supporting her with one arm. "Look, Princess, your ship's fried and you've got a concussion. The closest Luminen outpost is 3 systems away. You're stuck with us lowly humans for now." Solara bristled at the casual use of princess. How could he possibly know? No, she realized. He was just being sarcastic. Humans had such crude humor. "My name is Sola," she said, shortening her royal name. "I demand you contact the Luminen embassy immediately." "I'll get right on that," Marcus said, guiding her out of the wreckage. "Just as soon as our monthly supply ship arrives, in about 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Solara's voice rose an octave. "That's unacceptable. I have urgent business." "Then you shouldn't have flown through an electromagnetic storm." He helped her onto his hover sled, trying not to notice how her skin seemed to pulse with inner light when she was agitated. "What were you thinking, taking that route?" "I was thinking," she said icily, "that I knew better than the navigation. Warnings, clearly. I overestimated my abilities." The admission seemed to physically pain her. Marcus studied her as he piloted the sled back to the facility. Despite her haughty attitude, there was something vulnerable in the way she clutched the safety rail, her knuckles white with tension. Whatever had driven her to risk the dangerous route, it had been important. The mining facility's medical bay was basic but functional. Marcus helped her onto an examination bed and began checking her vitals with the scanner. No internal injuries, mild concussion. "You're lucky. Luminans don't believe in luck." Solara informed him. "We believe in calculated probability." "How's that working out for you?" Despite herself, Solara felt her lips twitch. The human's irreverence was oddly refreshing. On Lumino's Prime, everyone treated her with suffocating deference. "Your medical facilities are primitive," she said instead of answering. "Yeah, well, they'll keep you alive." Marcus pulled up a chair. "So, Sola, what's a Luminen doing way out here?" "This isn't exactly a tourist destination." Solara had prepared a cover story, but looking into his warm brown eyes so different from the swirling colors of her own people, she found herself hesitating. There was a straightforwardness to him that made deception feel distasteful. "I was traveling," she said vaguely, "seeking new experiences, running from something, more like." At her sharp look, he raised his hands. "Hey, no judgment." Half the people here are running from something. The other half are too stubborn to run. Which are you, the stubborn kind? He grinned, and Solara was annoyed to find it charming. Someone's got to keep this place running. Speaking of which, you'll need quarters. We've got an empty unit in Block C, nothing fancy, but it's got atmosphere and running water. I suppose it will have to suffice. She stood carefully, pleased when the room didn't spin. When can you begin repairs on my ship? I'll assess the damage tomorrow. Fair warning, Luminant tech isn't exactly my specialty. You might have to get your hands dirty. Solara looked at her slender, uncalloused hands with dismay. Manual labor was beneath her station, but revealing her identity would bring complications. She couldn't afford. Not when she was finally free, even if temporarily. I'll manage, she said with more confidence than she felt, as Marcus led her through the utilitarian corridors of the mining facility. Solara couldn't help but notice the way he walked, confident, but unhurried, stopping to check on various systems and exchange friendly words with the few workers they passed. There was a competence to him that her royal tutors would have called quaint, but which struck her as genuinely impressive. Home sweet home, he announced, opening the door to a small but clean apartment. I'll bring you some supplies and food. Any dietary restrictions I should know about. Luminans can consume most carbon-based nutrients, she said, though we prefer our food to be aesthetically pleasing. I'll see what I can do. He paused at the doorway. For what it's worth, Sola, whatever you're running from, you're safe here. We look after our own on Kepler 7, even the temporary residents. After he left, Solara sank onto the narrow bed, her composure finally cracking. Safe. When was the last time she'd felt truly safe? Not in the Crystal Palace, where every word was measured for political impact. Not among the courtiers who saw her only as a path to power. Here, parsecs from home. In this dingy mining facility, with its plain-spoken human mechanic, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the possibility of being just herself. The next morning arrived with the artificial dawn of Kepler 7's lighting system, and Solara found herself staring at a plate of what Marcus had optimistically called breakfast. The protein cubes were arranged in a surprisingly artistic pattern, accompanied by hydroponic vegetables cut into star shapes. You said aesthetically pleasing, Marcus explained, looking oddly bashful as he sat across from her in the facility's small cafeteria. It's not exactly Luminant cuisine, but it's perfect, Solara said, surprised to find she meant it. On Lumino's Prime, her meals were works of art that took hours to prepare, but this simple effort touched her more than any elaborate feast. Thank you. They ate in companionable silence until Marcus's Kamini buzzed. Ready to see your ship. Fair warning, it's not pretty. The short ride to the crash site revealed the full extent of the damage in daylight. Solara's elegant vessel looked like a broken jewel against the gray rocks, its crystalline hull fractured in dozen places. The good news is your core systems are intact, Marcus said, running his scanner over the damage. The bad news is your propulsion matrix is completely fused. Those electromagnetic storms don't play nice with Luminant crystal tech. Can you fix it? Solara tried to keep the desperation from her voice. Every day she remained here increased the chance of her father's guards finding her. Maybe, but I'll need your help. He gestured to the exposed systems. This integration of organic crystal and traditional electronics sits brilliant, but I can't read half these configurations. You'll have to guide me. Solara had never worked on a ship before. That was the domain of engineers and technicians, far beneath a princess's notice. But as Marcus patiently explained his repair strategy, she found herself genuinely interested. His hands moved with practiced precision as he pointed out each system, and she caught herself studying the way his brow furrowed in concentration. The crystal matrix needs to be realigned at the molecular level, she said, drawing on theoretical knowledge from her education. On Luminos, we would use harmonic frequency generators. We don't have those, but Marcus's eyes lit up. What? If we used the mining lasers, if we can modify the frequency output, that might actually work. Solara felt a flutter of excitement. You'd need to calculate the resonance pattern precisely. Good thing I've got a Luminant consultant then. He flashed that grin again, and Solara felt warmth spread through her chest. They worked side by side through the day, and Solara discovered that manual labor wasn't quite the hardship she'd expected. Marcus was a patient teacher, never condescending. When she struggled with tools, always ready with an encouraging word. When she successfully realigned her first crystal component, his delighted "you're a natural" made her glow with pride. "You know," Marcus said during a break, sharing his water with her, "you're not like other luminans I've met." Solara tensed. "Oh, most of them act like they're doing you a favor just by existing. You're different. You actually listen, you learn. You're not afraid to get your hands dirty." He gestured at her now smudged clothing, literally. "Perhaps I'm not a very good luminan then," she said carefully. "Or maybe you're the best kind." His expression was serious now, the kind who sees people, not just species. That evening, Marcus led her to the facility's observation dome, a clear plasteel bubble that offered a panoramic view of the stars. Kepler-7 slowly rotated below them, its rings catching the light of the distant sun. "I come here when I need to think," he explained, settling onto one of the cushioned benches. "Reminds me why I stay in this nowhere posting." "Why do you stay?" Solara sat beside him, careful to maintain proper distance, even as every fiber of her being wanted to move closer. "My parents were colonists on New Hubbay when the plague hit. The consortium wrote the entire colony off, not profitable enough to save." His voice was steady, but she could hear old pain beneath. "I was off-world at university. By the time I gathered enough credits to hire a ship, it was too late." "Marcus, I'm so sorry." He shrugged. "That's when I learned that waiting for others to help doesn't work. So I came here, learned everything I could about keeping people alive in hostile environments. The miners here, the traders who pass through, their good people who deserve someone watching their backs." Solara thought of her own life, pampered, protected, every need anticipated before she could voice it. "You're very noble." "Nah, just stubborn." "Remember," but he smiled. "What about you? What makes a luminan risk everything to fly through an electromagnetic storm?" She chose her words carefully. "My family has expectations. They see my future as something to be shaped for their benefit, not mine. I wanted to experience life on my own terms, even briefly." "Controlling family, huh? I get that." He was quiet for a moment. "You know, you could stay. We always need skilled workers. And you're picking up the technical stuff fast. Stay." The word came out as barely a whisper. The idea was absurd, a princess of Lumino's prime living on a mining asteroid. And yet, just a thought. Marcus stood, offering his hand. "Come on, I'll walk you back." She took his hand, noting how rough his palm was against her smooth skin, how carefully he helped her to her feet. They walked in silence through the quiet corridors, but when they reached her quarters, neither seemed eager to say good night. "Thank you," Solara said finally, "for today, for treating me like a person. That's all anyone really wants, isn't it?" His thumb brushed over her knuckles before he released her hand. "To be seen for who they are, not what they are." As her door closed behind her, Solara pressed her back against it, hearts racing, luminans head to hearts. A fact that seemed particularly inconvenient when both were beating for a human mechanic who had no idea he was falling for a runaway princess. She moved to the small window, watching Marcus's figure disappear around a corner. Tomorrow they would work on her ship again. Tomorrow she would have to pretend she wasn't memorizing every detail of his smile, wasn't treasuring every moment of casual contact. Tomorrow she would have to remember why she couldn't stay. But tonight, in the quiet of her simple quarters, Solara allowed herself to imagine a different life, one where she was just Sola, a luminan who fixed ships and watched stars with a kind human who made her feel more real than she'd ever been in all her years of royal privilege. The crystal pendant at her throat, the only sign of her true identity, she'd kept pulsed with soft light, responding to her emotional state. She tucked it beneath her shirt, hiding its telltale glow. She was living on borrowed time. She knew, eventually, her ship would be repaired. Eventually, she would have to choose between duty and desire. But for now, she had tomorrow to look forward to, and that was enough. 2 weeks had passed in a blur of repairs and stolen moments. Solara had grown accustomed to the rhythms of the mining facility, the morning shift changes, the evening gatherings in the common room, and most of all, her daily work sessions with. Marcus, try it now, Marcus called from beneath the ship's hull. Solara activated the realignment sequence, watching as the fractured crystals began to resonate and merge. The soft harmonic tone filled the repair bay. It's working. She couldn't contain her excitement. Dropping to her knees beside where Marcus lay on the mechanic's creeper. Marcus, we did it. He slid out, a broad smile creasing his grease-smudged face. We make a good team, Sola. The way he said her false name sent a pang of guilt through her. These past weeks, she'd caught herself almost confessing the truth dozens of times. But how could she explain that she was Princess Solara, heir to the Crystal Throne, without destroying everything they'd built? A sudden tremor shook the facility, sending tools clattering to the floor. The lights flickered ominously. What was that? Solara asked, helping Marcus to his feet. His face had gone pale. Seismic activity. We've been getting tremors all week, but nothing this strong. His comm unit crackled to life with urgent voices. Cave-in in Shaft 12. 3 miners trapped. Without hesitation, Marcus grabbed his emergency kit. I have to go. I'm coming with you. The words left her mouth before she could think. Sola, no, it's dangerous. I said I'm coming. She met his concerned gaze steadily. You taught me that we look after our own here. Those miners are my people now too. Something shifted in his expression: surprise, admiration, and something deeper. All right, stay close. The scene at Shaft 12 was chaos. The main entrance had collapsed, and desperate attempts to clear it were proving futile. The shaft supervisor looked relieved to see Marcus. The secondary access tunnel is still clear, but it's unstable, he reported. We need someone small enough to navigate the debris field and set up support beams from inside. I'll go, Marcus said immediately. You're too broad-shouldered, Solara interrupted, already shrugging on a spare protective suit. I can fit. Absolutely not, Marcus. She touched his arm, feeling the tension in his muscles. Trust me, please. Their eyes met, and she saw. The moment he understood this wasn't negotiable. Fine, but I'm going with you. The secondary tunnel was a nightmare of twisted metal and precarious rock formations. They crawled through spaces barely wide enough for Solara, with Marcus somehow managing to follow despite his larger frame. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows that danced with each tremor. There, Marcus pointed to a partially collapsed chamber where they could hear voices calling for help. If we can shore up that support beam. A deafening crack cut him off. The ceiling above them groaned, and Marcus threw himself over Solara as rocks rained down. When the dust settled, they found themselves cut off from both directions, trapped in a pocket of space barely large enough for 2 people. Are you hurt? Marcus's voice was tight with concern. He was still shielding her. Their bodies pressed close in the confined space. No, Solara's words died as she realized their position. She could feel his heartbeat against her chest, quick and strong. Marcus, rescue team will find us, he said. But she heard the uncertainty. His comm unit was dead, crushed by falling rocks. Might take a while though. They carefully repositioned themselves, sitting side by side against the most stable wall. The emergency light between them cast a soft glow, creating an oddly intimate atmosphere despite their circumstances. Not how I imagined spending the evening, Solara said, attempting lightness. How did you imagine it? The question was soft, almost vulnerable. She turned to look at him, finding his face closer than expected. Watching the stars from the observation dome. With you, Sola. His hand found hers in the dim light. These past weeks, I've been trying to tell myself that you're leaving soon. That whatever this is between us, it can't last. What if I didn't leave? The words tumbled out, reckless and true. What if I stayed? You'd give up your life, your people, for a mining asteroid. Not for an asteroid. Her free hand touched his cheek. For you. You don't even know me. Not really. I know you work 18-hour shifts when equipment breaks down so the miners don't lose life support. I know you give half your rations to the family in Block D because their daughter is sick. I know you see beauty in broken things and believe they can be fixed with patience and care. How do you? Because you fixed me, she whispered. I came here broken, running, afraid, and you made me feel whole. Marcus cupped her face gently. his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "You're glowing," he murmured, and she realized her emotional state had triggered her natural luminescence. Luminance glow. She swallowed. "When we're in love." The confession hung between them like a star going nova. Then Marcus was kissing her, and Solara forgot about duty, forgot about thrones and expectations. His lips were warm and certain against hers, his hands gentle as they tangled in her hair. She kissed him back with 2 weeks of suppressed longing, pouring all the words she couldn't say into the contact. When they broke apart, both breathing heavily, the rocks around them shifted. Shouts echoed through the debris. The rescue team had found them. "Whatever happens," Marcus said urgently, "know that The wall beside them exploded outward. But instead of rescue workers, armored figures in royal purple stepped through. Luminen Royal Guard, their crystal weapons trained on Marcus. "Princess Solara," the lead guard said. Bowing low, "Your father commands your immediate return." In the shocked silence that followed, Solara felt Marcus's hand slip from hers. She turned to see him staring at her, understanding and hurt warring in his expression. "Princess," he said quietly, the word like a wall between them. "Marcus, I can explain." "Your Highness," the guard interrupted. "We must leave immediately. The king is most displeased by your absence." Solara looked between the guards and Marcus, her two hearts breaking in perfect synchronization. The truth was out, and with it, any chance at the life she glimpsed here. But as the guards moved to escort her away, she made a decision that would change everything. "No," she said, her voice carrying all the royal authority she'd been born with. "I'm not going anywhere until these miners are safe." The guards hesitated, and in that moment of uncertainty, Solara saw something flicker in Marcus's eyes. Not forgiveness yet, but perhaps the possibility of it. The rescued miners were barely clear of the tunnel when the sky above Kepler-7 lit up. With the arrival of a massive crystalline warship, it descended like a falling star, its hull refracting light into painful rainbows that made everyone shield their eyes. "Father," Solara whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. The Crystal King emerged from his ship with all the ceremony his position demanded. His form was tall and imposing, his skin luminescent with an inner fire that spoke of barely controlled power. The crown of living crystal that floated above his head pulsed with each step. "Solara," his voice carried across the landing pad without need for amplification. "You have disgraced our house with this childish flight." Marcus stood forgotten among the mining crew, watching as Solara transformed before his eyes. Her posture straightened, her chin lifted, and suddenly he could see the princess she'd always been. The woman who'd worked beside him, laughed at his jokes, kissed him in the dark. Was she real? Or had it all been a royal game? "Father," Solara replied, her tone formal but firm. "I acted as my conscience demanded." "Your conscience?" The king's laugh was like breaking crystal. "Your conscience is a luxury you cannot afford. You are promised to Prince Vesper of the Andromeda sector. The alliance will secure peace for 3 systems. I never agreed to that arrangement. Your agreement is irrelevant." The king's gaze swept over the assembled humans with dismissive coldness until it landed on Marcus. Something in the monarch's expression sharpened. "Ah, I see," with a gesture. The king's guards moved to flank Marcus. He stood his ground, meeting the king's swirling eyes without flinching. "You are the distraction that has clouded my daughters." "Judgment," the king said. "What is your name, human?" "Marcus Chen," he replied steadily. "And with respect, your majesty, your daughter's judgment seems perfectly clear to me." Solara's breath caught. The guards' hands moved to their weapons, but the king raised a hand to still them. "You dare speak to me of my daughter's mind?" "I speak of what I've seen," Marcus continued. "A brilliant woman who can realign crystal matrices by intuition, who risks her life for miners she's never met, who glows with joy when she solves a problem everyone said was impossible. If that's clouded judgment, then maybe the rest of us should be so lucky." Pretty words from a species that lives barely a century. The king turned back to Solara. "You will return with me, now, and if I refuse, then you are no daughter of mine and no princess of Lumino's prime." His voice softened marginally. "Solara, child, I know you believe this is love, but you are young, and humans, they burn bright and brief. Prince Vesper is of our kind. he will live the centuries with you. A lifetime of misery is still misery, whether it lasts decades or millennia, Solara said. She moved to stand beside Marcus, her hand finding his. I choose love, father, even if it's brief. The king's expression hardened to something beyond stone. Then you choose exile. Guards, we leave. Wait, Marcus stepped forward. Your Majesty, in my culture, when someone wishes to marry, they must prove themselves worthy to the family. The king paused. You presume much, human. I presume nothing. I'm asking for a chance. Marcus's jaw set with determination. Give me the opportunity to prove myself by your customs, not mine. Marcus, no, Solara whispered. You don't understand what you're asking. But the king was studying Marcus with new interest. You would submit to the trials of Luminos. You understand that no human has ever attempted them. Then I'll be the first. Father. Please, Solara began. Silence. The king's word cut like a blade. The human has made his request according to ancient law. I cannot refuse. A cold smile played at his lips. Very well, Marcus Chen. You have one lunar cycle to prepare. If you survive the trials and prove worthy, I will reconsider my position. If you fail, he didn't need to finish the threat. With a sweep of his crystalline robes, the king departed, his guards falling in behind him. The warship lifted off, leaving scorch marks on the landing pad and a deafening silence in its wake. You idiot, Solara said, tears streaming down her face as she turned on Marcus. You complete fool. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Bought us time, Marcus replied calmly. Bought your death. She was shaking now. The trials aren't just tests, Marcus. They're designed to prove Luminan's superiority. The trial of light alone requires navigating by color spectrums humans can't even see. The trial of resonance demands hearing frequencies beyond your range. And the trial of time. She trailed off, unable to continue. Then teach me, Marcus said simply. You can't learn to see ultraviolet in a month. You can't just... He caught her hands, stilling her frantic gestures. Solara, look at me. She met his eyes reluctantly. Do you love me? That's not, do you love me? Yes, she whispered. Yes, I love you. Then teach me. Help me understand your world, your culture, your people, not just to pass some trials, but because I want to know everything about you, the real you. He smiled softly. Princess or not, you're still the woman who argued with me about optimal crystal frequencies and ate star-shaped vegetables to make me happy, and you're really willing to risk everything? For someone who lied to you, you didn't lie, you just didn't tell me everything. He pulled her close. And yes, I'm willing to risk it. You're worth it. We're worth it. Solara buried her face against his chest, her tears soaking his work shirt. Around them, the miners and facility workers began to disperse, giving them privacy while whispering among themselves about what they'd witnessed. 1 month, she said finally. We have 1 month to accomplish the impossible. Good thing we're experts at fixing broken things that everyone says can't be fixed, Marcus replied, pressing a kiss to her silvery hair dot as they stood together on the scarred landing pad. Solara began to let herself hope. The trials were deadly, designed to be impossible for other species. But Marcus had already achieved the impossible. He'd made a princess fall in love with him. Perhaps one more miracle wasn't too much to ask for. The chamber of trials on Luminos Prime was carved from a single massive crystal that had grown for millennia in the planet's core. As Marcus stood at its entrance, the alien beauty of Solara's homeworld still overwhelmed him. Cities that sang in harmonious frequencies, gardens of luminescent flora that painted impossible colors across the sky. Remember, Solara whispered beside him, her hand squeezing his. The trials test more than ability. They test character, wisdom, and heart. No pressure. Marcus murmured, earning a wan smile. The past month had been intense. Solara had taught him everything she could about Luminan culture, history, and philosophy. But more importantly, she'd shown him how to think like a Luminan, to see connections where others saw only chaos, to find harmony in apparent discord. The Crystal King sat on his throne of living light, Prince Vesper beside him, tall, elegant, and radiating the kind of beauty that made humans feel like rough drafts. The assembled court watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disdain. "Marcus Chen," the king intoned, "you may begin." The first trial was light. Marcus entered a maze where the walls shifted between spectrums visible and invisible to human eyes. The intended solution required navigating by ultraviolet markers only luminans could see. But Marcus had learned something crucial. During his time repairing Solara's ship, crystal resonated at different frequencies depending on light exposure. Using a small scanner he'd modified with Solara's help, he could detect the vibrations and follow them like breadcrumbs. The court murmured in surprise when he emerged in half the expected time. The trial of resonance came next. Hidden within a cacophony of sound were 3 specific frequencies that, when identified and reproduced, would unlock the chamber. Human hearing couldn't detect them. Marcus closed his eyes, remembering Solara's lessons about harmonic convergence. He couldn't hear the frequencies, but he could feel them. Placing his hands on the crystal walls, he felt for the vibrations, using his engineering knowledge to identify the resonance patterns. One by one, he hummed the frequencies, not perfectly, but close enough that the crystals accepted his attempt. The massive doors swung open. Prince Vesper leaned forward, his perfect features marred by a frown. The king's expression remained unreadable. The final trial was timed, a test of patience and perception where candidates must identify the exact moment of crystalline bloom in a chamber where time moved differently. Some waited days, others years, trying to catch the split-second event. Marcus entered the chamber and immediately felt the temporal distortion. Time stretched and compressed around him like taffy. But he'd spent years monitoring mining equipment, waiting for that precise moment when crystal formations were ready for extraction. He didn't try to fight the time flow or impose his will upon it. Instead, he let himself sink into the familiar meditation of watching and waiting. Hours or minutes passed, he couldn't tell, but then he felt it. A shift in the air pressure, a change in the light's quality. "Now," he said simply. The crystal bloomed in a cascade of impossible beauty, its petals unfolding across dimensions. The chamber doors opened, revealing a stunned court. Marcus emerged to find the king standing, his expression no longer dismissive, but thoughtful. "You completed the trials," the king said slowly, "but not as they were designed. You adapted them." "With respect, Your Majesty," Marcus replied. "Isn't adaptation what life's about? Finding new solutions to old problems? Your daughter taught me that Luminan philosophy values harmony above all. I couldn't compete with Luminan abilities, so I found harmony between what I could do and what was required." "You had help, Prince," Vesper interjected. "The scanner, the knowledge." "Yes," Marcus agreed readily. "Solara helped me, just as I'll help her every day, for as long as she'll have me. That's what partners do." The king descended from his throne, circling Marcus slowly. "You would live here, among beings who will far outlive you, or Solara could live among humans. Or we could split our time. The where doesn't matter, Your Majesty. Only the who, Father." Solara stepped forward, her royal bearing evident despite her simple clothes. "Marcus has proven himself by every measure that matters. He completed your trials through ingenuity and determination. He's shown respect for our culture while maintaining his own identity. What more would you have him do?" The king was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a real smile that transformed his austere features. "I would have him answer one more question. Marcus Chen, when my daughter's light inevitably outlasts yours, when you grow old while she remains young, what then?" Marcus met the king's gaze steadily. "Then I'll be grateful for every moment I had with her, and I'll trust her to carry our love forward into whatever comes next. Isn't it better to have 50 years of true happiness than 500 of mere contentment?" Spoken like a human, the king said, but there was warmth in it now, short-lived, perhaps, but burning bright. He turned to Solara. "You would truly choose this path?" "I already have," Solara said, moving to take Marcus's hand. "Every day for the past month, every moment since I met him, I've chosen it." The king nodded slowly. "Then let it be recorded that Marcus Chen has completed the trials of Luminos and proven himself worthy." He raised his voice to address the court. "We shall have a wedding. Let it be a bridge between our peoples. a symbol that love recognizes no boundaries of species or lifespan. The wedding took place 1 week later, at the border between human and Luminan space. Ships from both civilizations formed a glittering constellation round the ceremony station. Solara wore a gown that shifted between traditional Luminan crystal, weaving and earth silk, while Marcus's suit incorporated both human formal wear and Luminan ceremonial elements. "You know," Marcus whispered as they stood before the assembled dignitaries, "this isn't how I imagined our story would go when I pulled you from that wreck." Disappointed, Solara teased, glowing with happiness. "Never. Though I do miss our little repair bay on Kepler 7. Well," she smiled mysteriously, "I may have purchased it. I thought we'd need somewhere to stay when we're not traveling the galaxy." Together, Marcus laughed, pulling her close as the officiant began the ceremony that would join not just 2 lives, but 2 worlds. As they exchanged vows under the light of distant stars, the assembled guests, human and Luminan alike, witnessed something unprecedented. Not just a marriage, but a promise that the universe was vast enough for all kinds of love. And in that moment, as Marcus kissed his alien princess, and she glowed bright enough to rival the stars, everyone present understood a fundamental truth. Love was the one force in the universe that needed no translation.